Today I want to talk about Arik Gilbert, who might be in for a transfer. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Arik Gilbert, who might be looking at a potential transfer after his first year at LSU, and that would be yet another devastating blow to LSU this season, and what might actually be the most devastating blow for them in a year full of actual gut punches. Now, let's start with the 2019 team was so good that it felt like LSU was going to be able to run this thing back at the beginning, right? And then we started to see how many guys were entering the NFL draft early or just going to the draft because they had graduated. And there was this question about whether or not they would be able to reload and re-go. After some analysis and talking around and really getting some opinions, I formed my own, in which I told y'all I believe that LSU was going to catch at least 5 losses in 2020. And I was laughed at and I was maligned right here in the comments of this space here. And now the LSU fans are all kinds of silent. Now, nobody could have predicted that Miles Brennan would suffer an injury that would basically knock him out for the rest of the season. But a lot of this other stuff, a new defense, a new passing game coordinator, new men around Ed Orgeron, losing out on Jamar Chase to start the season, right? And not having a bell cow like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, really asking your defensive backs to step up, really trying to figure out who's going to replace Chris Fulton and understanding what that means opposite Derek Stingley Jr. All of those questions now have answers. It's hard, right? It's hard. But rather than continue to dance on LSU, who is on the floor, I want to point out a lot of other things off the field that haven't gone their way either, like the self-reported violations. Among them, Vidal Alexander's daddy receiving 180 G's to go to LSU. That was embezzled from a hospital. It's a bad look all the way around. Another bad look all the way around. Sexual assault scandal that they are having to investigate with an outside law firm with Darius Geis at the center of it. And some really, really ugly allegations being leveled at LSU. Then you look at their play on the field and they're bad. And you've had opt-out after opt-out and kids entering the transfer portal left and right. So much so that it is believed their scholarship numbers are in the low to mid 60s. You get to have 85 scholarship players. But now with the self-reported violations, they're going to be down at least 8 in the coming year. So when you look at Arik Gilbert, you also are looking and going, man, at least we have that guy. We have outstanding freshmen. Elias Ricks was looking pretty good. Cordell Flott was looking pretty good. It ain't been the best year for Derek Stingley Jr. I want to talk about that near the end of the video because there's something else to say about that. But you also need to understand that Arik Gilbert is hyped as Megatron, right? He is that dude, 6'5", 250 pounds. At the tight end position at Marietta, had over 105 catches for 1,800 yards as a high school senior, had 11 for 146 in the 7A state title game, and helped them win their first state title game in decades at Marietta. Many people believed that Arik Gilbert was going to end up at Georgia, and LSU was able to swoop in and get him, and that was tremendous. A great coup for them against Kirby Smart and going into his state and getting the best player out of it. But the guys that recruited him are gone, right? Analyst that helped out with Joe Brady is at Old Dominion. Joe Brady, of course, is calling plays for the Carolina Panthers. So the guys that he might have looked to help him steady himself and anchor him in Baton Rouge aren't there. You're going to have to talk him into staying at a place where he's been homesick basically since January. And after watching them get destroyed by Alabama, I can understand why you might not want to be there much longer, if at all, right? And it's not as if Arik Gilbert would not be a highly coveted commodity in the portal. Matter of fact, he would be the most highly coveted commodity in the portal. Now, I think Georgia has the inside track here because the words home and sick mean getting back to the state and not too far from Athens, be at home, right? You also need to take into account here, though, if Florida can get in there, if Alabama can get in there, if Ohio State can get in there, if Oklahoma can get in there, if any of these traditional powers, Clemson, can actually get a word in if he goes into the portal, now we're talking about making moves here, right? Because it ain't like Clemson is that much farther from Athens or Georgia for that matter, right? Gainesville, we'll see, right? That's I don't know that it's equidistant, but you get my point here. He also was playing on the same high school team as Harrison Bailey, who went to Tennessee, and B.J. Ojulari, right? So, there's a lot of factors at play here. And I think you're going to have to wrap your arms around that big dude and try to convince him, please stay, because he is going to be your best player next year and probably best player that next year. And that probably is true anywhere that he chooses to go. I can only think of a few places where he might not be the best player on the football field, and those places have guys that are going to be helping them play in the college football playoff. Imagine DJ Uiagalelei throwing passes to Arik Gilbert. Yeesh, Clemson. Imagine Bryce Young throwing passes to both Arik Gilbert and Jay Billingsley and John Mechie. Yeesh, Bama. You continue to look around, and it gets to be kind of nasty real quick if you start to put this together like you would NCAA 14. Another thing I want to talk about is we've had this ongoing discussion about the DBU, defensive back U. LSU feels they have a claim. Ohio State has a claim. I've sided with Ohio State because you look at the last 4 years, 7 first-rounders drafted at the defensive back positions. Just the last 4 years, right? Perhaps won't happen this year, but we'll see. They got a better shot, right? Because Shaun Wade slotted as a first-round draft pick by many, and he's on the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award list. So many of you know that I am on the selection committee for the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award, and I really enjoy being on it and helping put together these lists. And a couple of the guys that I had on my list when I sent in my ballot actually made the semifinalist list. So I'm going to go through them one by one and see if you can get where I'm going here. Bubba Bolden coming out of Miami, redshirt junior. Jalen Catalon, redshirt freshman coming out of Arkansas. Kaiir Elam coming out of Florida as a sophomore. Richie Grant, who I feel like has been on this list for 4 years. Central Florida and a redshirt senior. Maybe this is his year to win it. Allie Green the fourth out of Tulsa, my alma mater, a senior. Outstanding young man. I really enjoy him. Shamar Jean Charles coming out of Appalachian State. Brandon Joseph is coming out of Northwestern. He was on my ballot. This is his first year, his true freshman stand-up. Should also mention that John Charles is a senior. Trayvon Morig is a monster, but that's what they produce at the safety position at TCU. He's a junior. Tyke Smith out of West Virginia is a sophomore. Patrick Surtain second, also on my ballot, is a junior coming out of Alabama. Shaun Wade, also on my ballot, Ohio State's a graduate. And James Wiggins, Cincinnati, is a senior, right? We got 3 coming out of the American, 1 coming out of the ACC, 2 coming out of B1G, 2 coming out of the Big 12, 3 coming out of the SEC, and 1 coming out of the Sun Belt. You'll notice there isn't an LSU player on the semifinalist list this year. That hasn't happened since I've been a part of the committee. And I think that also speaks to what we're talking about when we say DBU. Derek Stingley Jr. just hadn't had that year, man, after playing the best corner I've seen in some time, especially as a true freshman. And I think he'll bounce back next year, and he'll have some help where it won't be as easy to isolate him or others. And I think a lot of this has to do with Bo Pelini. Ed's probably going to have to fire his defense coordinator and go get somebody else because turns out Dave Aranda was doing a job. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.